All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a question that's honestly so important in the world we live in today. How do you come across as confident without accidentally causing offense? You know that feeling, right? Where you think you're being assertive, but somehow it gets misinterpreted as aggressive when you're dealing with different cultures. Well, if that sounds familiar, this one's for you. We're about to decode the cultural code of confidence.
So let's just ask it directly. Is your confidence getting lost in translation? Picture this. You walk into a room. You're feeling on top of your game, clear, ready to connect, but for some reason, the message just isn't landing. It's such a common and frankly frustrating experience. But here's the thing. The problem probably isn't you. It's that you're speaking a totally different cultural language of confidence.
Okay, check this out. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. In one culture, speaking directly, well, that's seen as confident, clear, and honest. It's a good thing. But you take that exact same behavior, drop it into another culture, and suddenly it can come across as aggressive, impolite, or even like you're in a huge rush. And that right there, that's the cultural disconnect that's at the very heart of so many misunderstandings. So this brings us to our first big idea here, what we're calling the confidence misunderstanding. Let's really dig into why a style that feels so natural, so authentic to you, might not travel so well when you're out in the world. We call this whole thing the comfort zone challenge. Think about it. Your authentic way of communicating, how you talk, how you listen, even just the way you take up space, it's all been shaped by your own culture. But the second you step outside of that bubble, what feels totally right and normal to you can be completely misinterpreted. And that's where you get that unintentional friction, those misconnections. So what's the fix? How do we get around this? Well, the solution, maybe surprisingly, doesn't start by looking out at everyone else. It starts by looking inward. And this brings us to a really powerful concept, your authentic joy compass. The whole idea is to find your own true north before you even try to navigate the rest of the world. Okay, so the key idea here is this concept called joy, and it's a framework developed by Dr. Delphina JOYce Avala. Now, it's not just about feeling happy, it's about your authentic self-expression. You can think of it like your internal confidence compass, that stable, unchanging core of who you really are, your values, your expertise. It's the stuff that doesn't change no matter what cultural setting you're in. This is your anchor, your foundation. Right, so once you're really anchored in your own joy, once you know your foundation, then you can start looking outward with real confidence. And that brings us to our next step, decoding cultural signals. This is where the fun starts. It's where you learn to read the room, but on a global scale. You basically become a detective of human interaction. Let's make this super concrete. Take Japan versus Brazil. In Brazil, holding sustained eye contact, that signals you're engaged. It builds trust. But if you try that in a meeting in Japan, it can feel really aggressive or even disrespectful. Or how about silence? In a Japanese meeting, silence is often a sign of thoughtful respect for what was just said. In Brazil, that very same silence could mean I disagree or I'm not interested. You see? The signals for what confidence looks like are practically opposites. And it's so important to remember, it's not about one being right and one being wrong. They're just different. Okay, so you have all this information. Now what? What do you actually do with it? Well, this is where you start to practice what we call the art of chameleon confidence. And I want to be crystal clear about this. This is not about being fake. It's not about erasing your identity. It's about being smart and respectful, adopting your communication style to build bridges with people. And the core skill to do this is something called strategic empathy. It's this simple but powerful idea that you consciously, on purpose, adjust your approach. Not to change who you are at your core, but to show respect and build trust with the person right in front of you. That's it. That's how you build a genuine connection, one small adjustment at a time. A really great way to think about this is the 80-20 rule. Let's start with the 80%. This is your non-negotiable core. It's your values, your expertise, and that authentic joy we were just talking about. This part of you, it never changes. It's your foundation. It's who you are. Now, the real magic, the real leverage, comes from that other 20%. These are the small, but I mean incredibly impactful adjustments you make in how you communicate. It could be something as simple as holding eye contact for a second longer, or maybe a second less, moderating your tone of voice, using a different kind of greeting. These tiny little shifts can have a massive impact. So how do you actually put this into practice? It's simple, really. You start by just becoming a keen observer. First, watch the greeting rituals. Is it a firm handshake, a bow, 2 kisses on the cheek? What's the deal with personal space? Then, in a meeting, you read the dynamics. Who speaks first? Is it okay to interrupt, or is that a huge taboo? Then you listen, really listen to the language. Is it super direct, or is it more subtle and layered with nuance? And finally, once you've gathered all that data, you make your small conscious adjustments based on what you've seen. And when you start to master this, it completely transforms your ability to connect and to lead. This is the moment where cultural intelligence stops being a nice-to-have and becomes your own personal leadership superpower. The impact of this whole approach, it creates this amazing ripple effect. See, when you adapt with empathy, that first tiny ripple is making the people around you feel seen, feel respected. That then builds the next ripple, trust. And that trust fosters stronger, more genuine connections across your team, which ripples out even further to elevate your leadership influence. And at the end of the day, it builds your legacy as someone who is a true global connector. So as we wrap things up here, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Now that you're armed with this new way of thinking, this understanding of joy, of observation and adaptation, what cultural code are you going to unlock first? Because that journey to becoming a true global connector, it all starts with that one small conscious adjustment.